Eat, sleep, bet, repeat. That's how we get down on the opening line at EliteSportsBetting.com. I'll be your host, Benny Ricciardi, and today we're back to talk a little bit more of some esports action with our man Moose. As you can see, Moose, I am actually in my bedroom right now because my wife is doing with everybody being home with this whole coronavirus thing, my wife's doing a conference call in the other room. I got my kids are all in their room. 2 of them are still finishing up their work from home homework as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, apparently being online, whether it's esports or doing some kind of work, is a popular thing these days.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling it. I'm gonna have to start buying socks that tell me what day of the week it is at this point, because it's all starting to get kind of monotonous, and it's you can get a lot of stuff done at home, but it's actually helped us improve a lot in making lineups, and me being able to get cash lineups out faster for the DK slates, which I started doing pretty consistently now. So there's some bonus to it while we're home, so I'm definitely taking full advantage of it.
Yeah, we had a pretty good couple days over here at Elite Fantasy playing some of these League of Legends tournaments that were going on during the week. And we got a big weekend of action that's coming up ahead. So before we look ahead here, Moose, let's look back a little bit, because I think right now there's a lot of people that are trying to learn how to play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the best things for somebody who's learning is to kind of look at what they did or what they might have done wrong. Or on the flip side, since you had a couple big days and a couple other big cashes here, maybe things that you did right that could help them kind of understand a little more about how to build their lineup. So let's start talking about the last couple days and, talk through the lineups that you made, why you did them, and why that worked out for you.
Sure. Essentially, the last 2 slates have both been hard cash lineups that have cashed.
Mm-hmm.
We had the first day I released on the China Korea slate. Basically, what DraftKings has been doing is they said, okay, we're not going to do a 3-game slate for League of Legends China and 3-game slate for League of Legends Korea. We're just going to combine them. And so now you have this large 6-game slate. It's starting to look like a football game. You got all these teams and players to choose from. And the first day they did this, there was some really good value on the board. And we managed to find it with some pretty decent teams. And so because of that, it was very, very easy for us to find a cash lineup that was both safe but had a lot of upside.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where we managed to find the real big plays in terms of being able to hit. And the first day I cashed everything. I won all my winner takes all. It's winner take alls. I've been entering all the winner take alls and all the big tournaments against the big boys on DK, because I want to see what they're doing, and I wanted to kind of get a feel for what they're doing. And then we also ended up doing really well in GPPs. So when you're making when you have one lineup that clears everything, it made it really easy for us to kind of really sweep that slate. And then the following slate, the one yesterday, was a lot harder. The games were a lot closer, and everybody on DraftKings had to take a risk. And I still put out a lineup that cashed really easily but it was by far the safest lineup. Like I specifically said in the slate that this lineup will cash you, like 80% of the time. This lineup will definitely cash you in your 50-50s, your double ups.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking for some risk, you got to find the value. You got to find a team. You got to choose a side. And
right.
So the strategy remains the same. We always want to pick winning players. Mm-hmm. So as long as we pick winning players with winning teams, we're doing good. Of course, we don't know who's going to win, so that's where the guessing aspect comes in and the gambling aspect of it. But it wouldn't be fun if we knew who was going to win.
Right. So let me ask you a couple questions based on what you said to kind of make this a little bit easier for some of the new people out there.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that we were able to find some value. Kind of explain what you're looking for there when you're looking for value, because I kind of have an idea what you're talking about, where you can find some of the guys that aren't the highest priced at their positions, and they're on a team that you still think has a good chance to win. But just kind of explain that a little better for people so they understand, like, what do you look for when you're looking for value to be able to link with some of the some of the, I guess, the big boys or the studs is the best way to say it.
Yeah, and so when DK releases their pricing, essentially they're gonna release it based on betting lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens in these slates is that you have essentially 5 or 6 teams that are at the top that are favored with all their favorite players. And depending on how many average fantasy points per game those players scored, they'll be differently priced. So we can find value in a player that is often not known to score as well because he's had a worse track record at the beginning of the split, or lately he's been doing a little bit worse. But we get good value on that player because of the team he's playing on. If we expect that team to win, if we expect that team to do work, we can get some value. To give you guys an example, our first slate, the one that we did really well on, the one that we hard cashed and hard hit every single GPP, almost won every single GPP. I think I placed fourth in like most tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
We managed to get a team called OMG in from China, and we managed to play them with a very good team called Dragon X. And Dragon X actually went on. They're one of the best teams in Korea. They actually went on to lose their game, but they're so good that even though they lost, they still gave us a ton of points,
Mm-hmm.
which is ironic because I just said that you need the winners to really win. If they had win, we would have been if they had won that game, and it was a very close game, which is why we saw such a small difference.
Mm-hmm.
But because we were able to get the higher price Dragon X team that everybody knew was good, and then we paired them with a team called OMG that was not as good, but playing against a much worse opponent, we took advantage of the worse opponent, and we ate the value on the slate.
So let me ask you this question, because here's something that I've kind of been noticing. Excuse me. When a team wins 2-0, right? Because you play 3-game series, against each other. When a team wins 2-0, are they typically going to score less points than maybe a team that has played a third game and it ends up 2-1? And if that's
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I know you get like a little bit of a bonus for that, but I kind of feel like maybe it was just the way that the games went, but the games that I had where they went 2-1, some of those guys were outscoring the players at their other positions in the games that went 2-0.
Yeah, that makes sense. So essentially what happens is that when you have a 2-1 game, oftentimes the 2-1 players will outscore the 2-0 players because the 2-0 players get a bonus for a game not played, right? Mm-hmm. That's a default bonus. But sometimes the games are so easy that the team that 2-0s the other team, or wins by 2 without any sort of issues, mm-hmm. they don't really have to put in any real effort. There's really no challenge for them. There's the skill gap is too hard. So you see, for example, T1 yesterday, they blew out a team called APK. And T1, they won their first game 14-0. So they scored 14 kills in that game. I mean, so there was no challenge. Had there been any challenge, then T1 would have put up more points, and then the 2-0 would have been a much larger score. So right. When you have a 2-1 score, especially if the team comes close to a win, to almost 2-0ing a team or losing the first game and then coming back, then the kills that they generate in that game, I believe the break point is about 16 or 17. Once you break that 15 to 17 kill range, you really have it really is better to find the 2-1 teams over the 2-0 teams.
Right. And that's basically what happened the other day, which is, along the lines of what you're talking about with the Dragon X too, is even though they lost, if you're in 3 games with high kills on both sides, you're still racking up the points because of, what you get paid for the kills in that situation as well. So let's move on and talk a little bit about what's going to go on this weekend. I know we have the big $300,000 tournament on Sunday over on DraftKings right there, which is mm-hmm. one that a lot of people are going to be putting their lineups in, and a lot of our guys, we do have some games. I'm pretty sure there's a game tonight, there's a game tomorrow, and there's a game Saturday as well. But the Sunday one is the big slate there. So let's take a look at the Sunday slate and just kind of walk people through your thought process of, because I know you said you hadn't really looked too deep at this one, which is actually why I want to do this one. Mm-hmm. When you sit down and you first look at a League of Legends slate, what's going through your mind? What are the things you're saying, all right, let me look at this before I start making my teams?
Sure. So the 300K spring finale is the largest League of Legends tournament that DK has done so far. Mm. This is the first time I've seen them put up anything above even 200K. They were throwing 175Ks all week now. Yep. But the 300K is a real tournament. I mean, it's very top heavy, obviously. It's pretty much like a typical millionaire GPP style. But you get this, you get 5 games instead of like a 12-game football slate. So the North American region, instead of playing a best of 3, they actually played 2 weekends and they played best of 1s. So they only play a best of 1. instead of playing best of threes. So instead of having 2 games a night or 3 games a night, they play 5 games in one
Okay.
day. So they play 5 best of 1 games. And so in those best-of-1 games, when I open up the slate, I take a look at each matchup and I figure out what I like and what I don't like, depending on who I think is going to win and past player performance. So
Okay.
obviously, past player performance is something that I know in my head, and I can't physically describe it. I can only write about it in the DK slate if I think that a team will dominate, or if I think that a player is bad
Right.
or not performing to the standards that we're used to for that player. And then when I look at the slate, that's where I start looking for value, especially when I can see a team that is capable of upsetting another team.
Yeah. So, and I think that's big. I think it's actually harder, in my opinion, to be right. And I think you get more upside out of it when you find that good value team, because you can plug in a couple different of the favorites and hope that, you catch one of them that, has just a monster kill game or something and has a
Mm-hmm.
really high scoring game. But you're not usually able to fit combinations of like two of the best teams in the, on the slate together. So you really have to find that one team that can give you some of those guys in like that 6K range that lets you play those guys in the 7 and 8K range with them. And there's usually a couple of the teams with the guys in the 7, 8K range that you want to use, but it's really tough to find those guys that are, a little bit cheaper in that 6K range over there on DraftKings that allow you to get it done. So to me, that's actually one of the most important things that I've noticed with the lineups that I've been building. When you can find that cheap team that's right, you can you could throw 3 or 4 different combinations of some of the top teams in there and usually come out with some lineups that are going to finish pretty high up in these big tournaments.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't necessarily need the highest priced team, and you don't necessarily need a team that even maxes your salary. I've won with lineups that have left more than 1,000 off the board. Just
Mhm.
whereas in other algorithmic senses, you want to max your lineups. In this case, there's really no priority to max the salary on the lineup. So
Mhm.
what you really want to focus more is where you pick your winners and where you pick your value picks. So the best value picks are good teams that are priced slightly lower because they're playing another good team.
Okay.
So just taking a look at the spring finale with you here, I can see right now that uh, if I just straight up looking live, I can tell you right now that there is going to be a significant amount of value on this slate because a lot of players are priced much cheaper than I thought they would. So when you're looking at, for example, a team like TSM, TSM is going up against a team that is considered to be pretty good in Dignitas, but I would strongly favor TSM being able to win that game. And I'm seeing here now, for example, just off the side, when you look at the mid slot, I see that a player called Bjorksen, who's one of the top mid players in the game, is on TSM, and he is the fifth fifth highest priced mid player, and he can easily outscore every other person on the slate.
Right. At the position there. So that's really what you're looking for. And then when you have a guy like that, or when you're able to save some money there, it makes it a lot easier to fit in, the combinations of the other teams and the other guys on his team that you want to put in. So let me ask you a couple questions that I've had, because like I said, I'm starting to get into this a little more too without a lot of the other sports we got
Mm-hmm.
going on. So when you get down to your team spot there, now normally I'm trying to link my team spot along with the players that I use. So like you mentioned some of the teams that you wanted to use the last couple of days. If you're using those teams, is it a good idea to have their team down there at the bottom in that team slot as well? So like, again, if you like TSM in this weekend there, would you want to have TSM in the team slot as well there? Or are you looking to put, one of the favorites that could go out there, like the teams that cost you like 5,800, 5,400 in that team slot there?
That's a great question.
I
Basically,
only ask great questions. That's what I do.
what I would do is find the value in the team slot that you can, but sometimes to make lineups fit, you have to spend up on a team, or you have to focus. You have to match your captain with the team, and
Right.
that's okay. That's totally fine. Uh,
Mhm.
a lot of times that lineup will just do wonders for you anyway. In this case, a team like Evil Geniuses and TSM and even even CLG, for example, have a great chance. They have a great chance of upsetting, I think, on Sunday. You have great value in those team slots, and you should be able to easily pair them with the players. So what I always look for team slots first is trying to find the value, because the score of a team, especially in a best of one, is completely random. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how long the game's going to go. A 20-minute game is bad for a team slot. A 40-minute game is great for a team slot.
Right.
And so you don't know how the game's going to go. You can kind of get a feel for what the players go for and how they're coached. Cloud9, their mission is to win every single game in under 30 minutes. Immortals, their mission is to just try to win games, but to draw them out as long as possible and force their opponent to make mistakes. So the team slot really can be anywhere. I really wouldn't. You really have to have prior knowledge, but I wouldn't. I would first try to save before spending up in the team slot for sure.
All right, so that's a good thing to know. And this is the kind of stuff that we want to get into here a little bit, because I know you're pretty deep into all these things and it's second nature to you when you're building them. But for a lot of, again, myself included, and a lot of our subs out there that have been asking you a bunch of questions over in chat and stuff, a lot of them are just kind of getting into the League of Legends thing. So let's give a quick overview. I know we did it a little bit last time, but maybe if you even want to dig into it a little bit more. Obviously everything is slate dependent, but best case scenario for you, ideal type lineup construction. What are you looking for, and how are you looking to build that lineup?
When I first look at the lineups, I always try to fit the carry in the captain slot. Mm-hmm. So when I do that, I want to make sure that I pick the winners, the teams that I think are going to win, and from those teams, I start to look at the value on the slate and see where I can get a cheaper captain, so I can afford to have a full team of winners.
Right.
So in my case, for example, I would look for possibly putting in one of the 80 carries from one of the winning teams, matching it with an 80 carry from another team, and then seeing where I can find the value around them. Doesn't necessarily need to be on the same team, but if it is, even better. Mm-hmm. It just comes down to the pricing that you find in the slate and where you find value. Taking a look just off the top of my head, for example, at the top position, Cloud9's Licorice is the sixth highest. He's almost the lowest winning, what I think is going to be the winning team of Cloud9, mm-hmm. Top laner. And so even though you could be doing like a FlyQuest TSM play, or you could be running like a Evil Geniuses FlyQuest or Evil Geniuses TSM play, mm-hmm. or Cloud9 TSM play or whatever, you could still put in a player from Cloud9 and still manage to get that value to stick in your carries in the team slot. You're basically trying to make it work so that you have as much of an ability to fit an 80 carry or a mid in there. And if you can't, that's okay. But I would then look into putting in a jungler, and after that, I would look into putting in a top laner.
Okay, so that's basically the kind of the hierarchy of how it's going to go down for you. But overall, what it sounds to me like you're saying is, the most important thing that you do first is figure out which teams you think are going to win, which is something that you write up in your article and do a good job of that. So for anybody who has a chance to read that article, make sure you're reading it over there at elitefantasy.com or elitesportsbetting.com, because that gives you a good idea of, the teams that Moose likes to win. And then you could almost kind of use those guys as your guide then, and then look at, like if you're on DK, you can highlight those teams that Moose likes to, or thinks are going to win. And then you can kind of go and, like he's saying, is look through, go to each different spot one by one, go to the AD carry spot, go to the support spot, go to the jungle spot, and say, okay, I like these 5 or 6 guys, their teams to win. We see that, these 2 guys are the lower priced of that group that we think are going to be winners there. So that's where you're getting a lot of that value from, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And the opposite of that is exactly how you would picture a football GPP slate. Mm-hmm. Everybody looks for value in a GPP slate in the wide receiver position and the running back position.
Right.
So a lot of the time is people avoid the big dogs. People avoid the Julio Jones, the Antonio Browns at the time when they were being crazy overpriced, and mm-hmm. and those players are being avoided. But the people that played those players had really good performances sometime, mm-hmm. and took down a lot of GPPs. This one of the biggest stars in football was only 4% owned because of his price.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I'm sure
and
you'll
he
see
put
more
up,
stuff.
and again with guys like that, like Julio Jones is a guy that you're going to need 35 points out of him if you plan on winning a GPP, but he does have those games where he catches 10 passes for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, and gets you that 35 kind of points. And I think that's kind of what Moose is saying here. If you can find, especially in GPPs, it's just like any other sport. If you can find a guy who's lower owned that puts in a monster performance, it's
Exactly.
obviously going to give you a big leg up on the field for all the other people that are kind of avoiding that guy. So, that is something that, definitely a GPP strategy there that you can look at as well. Now, we talked about this a little bit last time too, but, stacking wise or like, linking players together, what are some of the things you look at when you're doing that, when you're putting your lineups together?
What I try to do is, I always try to fit the carries together in on a slate if I can, but in the latest version of League of Legends, that's not as important as it used to be. So
Okay.
before you would almost always want your AD carry and your mid player to be from the same teams,
Mm-hmm.
and that would work. You would stick your AD carry in the captain slot. You would put the another team's AD carry in the AD carry spot, and then you would put the mid you would match with your captain, so you had the two carries. At
Uh-huh.
this point, that's not that important. We're seeing with the latest metagame and the latest patches and the updates, I'm seeing a lot more progress of a team focusing their kills around one player, and they do that in a game. They don't do that in the back of their minds. They react to that as they play the game.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if the team is doing really well, they'll see who on their team is performing up to those standards, and they try to get that person more kills, have that person what we call snowball a game. And then once that snowball continues, then that carry will significantly outperform the other carry.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying now is essentially that you used to have to put your mid player and your AD carry from the same team in the same stack. At this point now, you don't have to do that anymore. You can focus your lineup more around finding small edges and players that you like and
Uh,
focusing on that. The one thing that I do like I mentioned in in the last pod, is if I'm playing an AD carry, I still want to include their support player,
right.
because when they play the game, the AD carry is right next to the support player. So the support player is always going to be getting assists as long as he's next to that AD carry. And in a team fight, even if the support player dies and the team fight continues, then if the AD carry gets kills, that support player is still getting those assists.
Okay, so yeah, so that actually makes a lot of sense right there. It's kind of more like basketball where you're linking a pick and roll point guard and a center who's catching the the alley oops on the other end right there.
Exactly. Yeah.
You need them both kind of playing together in tandem in order for both of them to do well. So they're either both going to do well and get the kills, or they're both going to do crappy. But when we're talking about GPPs, that's what you want. Is you want the game where both of them, the AD carries getting all the kills and the support player is helping them out and getting a lot of that stuff there. So that's a good way we could probably stop it over here for today, Moose. I like what we did today. Like I said, we're going to be having Moose come on once or twice a week, especially with all the LOL that DraftKings has been offering, and the fact that they're putting some pretty decent prize pools out there. So Moose, kind of give everybody an idea. I know you got the article on both of the websites. You got the bets up there. Tell people where they can find all this stuff for you, that and when it comes out and all that, so they know when to look for it.
Sure. What I usually recommend is checking the websites every day, but also checking my Twitter and the lead alerts. As you know, the lead alerts are fantastic. Everybody always likes them when I update the pages. But I will try to post. I'm saying that I've done it. I've been consistent so far, but I will try to post a write up on the DK slate every single day, and that'll be in Elite Fantasy. And
Mhm.
then I will try, and then I post bets for all esports every single day on elitesportsbetting.com. Both of those are linked to my Twitter, which is Moose Elite. And what I'm also considering doing is doing a call, or like a voice chat almost, so
Mhm.
I can talk about the games as they go on. And I'm considering
Good idea.
doing that maybe like on a Sunday or a Saturday, or where I just sit in the call and I talk about what's happening in the game.
Mhm.
I did that as like a beta run with Duke, and when I did that with Duke on Tuesday, I was talking with him through a team fight, and his eyes, I could just tell that he was just like so overwhelmed because he had no clue what's going on, and I'm talking like a mile a minute about what's going on in the game. But over time, that is the only real way we can improve, and that is the only way we can help the subs improve. So we're working towards doing that. It would essentially be like all of us watching the games together, but me kind of talking over what's going on, because a lot of the times the casters aren't doing a good job of telling you what's going on. They assume the casters are speaking from a perspective of a younger kid, and they don't quiet. They expect everybody to already know what's going on in the game.
Yeah,
so it's hard for
they
people.
don't speak. They don't speak like they're talking to new players. They speak like they're talking to other guys that are at that level or close to that level and really know what's going on right there.
Exactly.
And a lot of times they don't even speak in English, which makes it even tougher with some.
Yeah, that's even harder. Like yesterday with China, exactly. So Elite Fantasy, Elite Sports betting. We have Counter Strike bets. We have League of Legends bets. We have Rainbow Six bets. We have Call of Duty bets. We have Dota 2 bets, where we have League of Legends covered on 4 regions. We have all esports covered. I do it all myself. So if you guys have any questions, Moose Elite is the Twitter, and the DK Slate article will be up today on Elite Fantasy.
And that's why he's the best here, folks. So for Moose, this is Benny signing off for another episode of The Opening Line at EliteSportsBetting.com.